That's the unmistakable sound of the Eminent Solina String Ensemble. Version 4, because version 4's got the LEDs in the buttons. Version 1 was a mono version and it didn't have an on-off modulation button. That came along in version 2. Then version 3 had the stereo and version 4 had the stereo with the LEDs and things. There's nothing wrong with this machine at all. This is our baby. This is ours to stay. It's just, I'm going to open it up and just do a little bit of a clean behind the slidey buttons and things, and just give it a little service. And I thought, while we're at it, we'll have a look inside of it. But before I say screwdriver time, some little facts. I think they're facts. If I'm wrong, please educate me. Write it in the comments below. Eminent was a family of organ sellers. I think they were founded in 1923, and then they went on to make organs and things. Now, they made the famous 310U, U for unique. Jean-Michel Jarre made that quite famous. But Jean-Michel Jarre has a bit of a workforce behind him to carry all his instruments and everything. So this little portable version of just the strings came out because it was easier for rock groups and other musicians to carry one of these around than it was to carry a great big organ around. But it sounds very, very nice. Now, there's been many versions of string machines. There's been the Hohner String Performer, the Roland RS-202, Logan Strings, Godwin String Concert, Krumar Strings, but it all really comes from one man, who is Ken Freeman, who kind of started this off. It's the modulation in this that gives it that lush sort of sound. And there's a bit of misinformation and speculation about who invented the modulation. I've heard where people have said, oh, ARP invented it, but actually ARP didn't invent it. It was patented, in Dutch. Long before Philip Dodds patented a sort of reissue or reinvention of this modulation. Philip Dodds, by the way, is the guy in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Famous little bit of a tune. Who played that on the ARP 2500? But yeah, so no, it wasn't ARP. It was Eminent. Ken Freeman was the discoverer of string synthesis. You would have heard his music in lots of things. He writes a lot of music for television, Holby City, Casualty. There is tunes that people hear every day. When I was a kid, I remember watching Tripods. Season 1, Season 2, and all ready for Season 3 when the good old BBC decided to cancel it. Thank you, BBC. Some of his famous work was in Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds. That wonderful sound in Oxygen captured my attention with Jean-Michel Jarre. And ever since, I know it looks a bit sick, but I save and collect everything the guy does. But I've always wanted a 310U, and I haven't got the space for it. That's why I've settled for this Selena String Ensemble, because it's the same thing. It sounds just the same. There's one guy that I know of who is still touring with the Eminent, and that's His Eminence himself, who is a friend of mine, John Mann. He still tours with the Eminent Grand 2000. He's still touring today and still releasing music after all these years. Thank you, John Mann. So I think you're probably fed up of me rabbiting on now, and you want to get to have a look inside this. So at last, here we go. Screwdriver time. Right. Switch it off first. Now then. Oh, you bastard! That. Unfortunately, this is the wrong screwdriver. I mean, this is for modern stuff. It's one of those posi drives. We need something a bit more antiquated, a flat one. Now we've got 3 screws in the top here, and they're proper wood screws, because it's wood, of course. I'm trying to be clever now. So we'll undo these 3 wood screws at the top, and I've never been in this, so I don't know what to expect. This is in extremely good condition. So we'll undo the 3 wood screws. I noticed one of them a bit wonky. Anyway, never mind. And yeah, what's happening here? Okay. It seems to still be attached somehow to the front. Oh dear. This is where I break it. So if you need to get in one of these, the 3 screws along the back, and then you have to wiggle this backwards, because it's got these tiny hooks that hook underneath this metal plate here. So I'll just put that there. And here we go. This is the inside of the Eminent String Ensemble. Now there's a bracket broken up here, but what you should have been able to do is, when you've lifted the lid up, is you should have been able to just ease this around, because there's a type of a hinge there, but unfortunately the hinge is broken on this side, so I'm going to have to wedge that with something. What something have we got? Right, okay, let's have a look inside here. These contacts are surprisingly clean, because they're underneath the board, which are underneath the keys, so they're not going to be so affected by dust and things, I expect. Now, on this board here, I've just noticed there is another row of tracks, but the board has been cut. Now, I'm assuming that because there's a connection here for another set of keys, maybe another octave, if we look back that end, you'll notice this section here is big enough for another octave of keys. So maybe the original idea was to make a 5-octave version, but they didn't. They had a 4 and just sawn that bit off. Unless they're using this circuit board, because they'll have hundreds of them hanging around, unless they're using this circuit board off one of their organs that probably had the another octave at this end. But that's just a thought. When you see tracks running off the edge of the board there and it's just sawn off, it just makes you wonder, was this going to be a 5-octave and they didn't bother? Who knows? All the keys go down to this board here, and I'm assuming this is a keying matrix. There's lots of chips on there, ITT TDA 0470s, 8 of them. Now they're 7-stage frequency dividers, and moving over to this board here, there's a big mother of a chip there. That's an AY51317. Now that is a chord generator. A chord generator in a Selena. Oh, don't know. I don't know what that's doing. It's got a self-contained oscillator, I know that. But what that is actually doing in this circuit, I can't figure it out. The other chips around here, they're all 4000 series chips. Yeah, 4066, that's analog bilateral switches, and so on and so forth. But yeah, nothing too exciting. There's a resistor there that looks like it's been cooking for years. But, you know, the instrument works, so why change it if it isn't broken? I don't know what value it is because it's burnt its paint off. But who knows? Let's have a look at some of the big boards on the back there. which might be a bit more interesting. This board has, what, 12? Yeah, 12 4029s. Now they're up-down counters. Maybe there's 12 there for the 12 notes on the keyboard. I don't know. But the interesting thing is here. This is obviously your modulation. There's the 1022 chips. There's one there. There's one there. They're the Bucket Brigade delay lines. They create the symphonic modulation. And this board on the back here, I'm assuming, is the synthesis board. This is what basically creates the initial sawtooth sound of this beautiful machine. The Mark 1 and Mark 2 had a heck of a lot more electronics in there. Several more boards that I know of. And obviously, as time goes by, it's new components appear, smaller components appear, and you know, the engineers redesign things and still get that wonderful sound with less space taken up. There's your great big toroidal transformer there with a 0.1 microfarad filter cap on it. All in all, it's in great condition. I particularly like all these plugs and things, so it wouldn't be too difficult if you needed to repair or you needed to, you know, change caps and things on boards. It would be quite easy to just pull these off, get the board out, fix it, slot it all back together again. Yeah, it's made so that it can be got at, so that you can repair things. It's very good. This board here, by the way, which has got the stereo output and the high and the low, that looks like almost like it was handmade, that board. Looking at these and then looking at that, they're the sort of boards I used to make years ago. It's just called the outputs board. There's also a DC gate out and an AC trigger out on this. I'm not sure if they were on the 1 and 2, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, if you notice here, there's a bit of paper with 2 staples. And I know for a fact that these used to come with spare fuses in a little envelope that used to be sellotaped on the inside. So somebody's been in and used them fuses or stolen the fuses for another job. But yeah, they used to put a little brown envelope there with some spare fuses in, which is rather nice, don't you think? There's a circuit board along the back here. There's a few components, just a few resistors, a few capacitors. There's a couple of ICs up here. I'm not sure what they're doing. They might be the ICs used for holding the switch on off, because they're not mechanically locked switches. They're just single push switches. So yeah, those chips might have been just hold the switch on, hold the switch off type of thing. So you've got the viola, the violin, the brass, the horn, the modulation on and off, and turn the sustain down. Doesn't sound like much, but you can mix them together. It's already starting to build up. Bit of sustain on there. As soon as you're switching the modulation, so the modulation performs the rich magic in this. And crescendo is, that's the attack, really. Your sustain length is your decay. There's a separate volume for your bass. If you bring in the contrabass or the cello, what it does is it uses the bottom 20 keys. So I think it splits about here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 20, yes. So the bottom 20 keys is used for your bass. So it comes in G is the top note. And then you can move it around with the tuning and have a few little bits of effects there. You can buy a MIDI for this, and you know, fitted in the back there. It's a bit of a job to install it, but yeah, you can actually MIDI these things up, which is nice. Kenton, I think. I didn't mention that your bass, contrabass and cello, is monophonic. It's only one key at a time. Whereas your viola, violin, brass and horn, that's polyphonic, full. Now, the volume bass, obviously that only affects this. The crescendo doesn't do anything for your bass at all. And it's so clean and tidy. I'm glad I opened it just so I could have a look inside there and have a look at the condition of it, which is very nice. Apart from the broken tab there, it's beautiful. It's obviously been very well looked after before it came into the possession of me. But I'll look after it. I'm going to keep it. Yeah, so the Mark 1 or the Mark 4, they do sound different. There's little differences in quality, whatever. And some people like the 1s, and some people like the 4s, and in between. And I'm certainly not going to argue and jump up and down and say this sounds better than that or that sounds better than this, because they all sound bloody good. All of them do. They just have different qualities, that's all. You know, if someone offered me a Mark 1, I'd snap it up. Yes, please. I'll put it alongside this one. Well, I'm not going to get into the argument of which sounds best. Some people like that, some people like that. And if you have a look on YouTube, there's some guy who's actually got a Mark 1 and a Mark 4. And he does actually one v the other, and he does show you the differences in them, and they both sound nice to me. I like them both. I'd like all of them. So there you go, all back together again. Hope you found something interesting in that lot. Time to say goodbye, and highly recommend you have a look around YouTube. There's some brilliant musicians out there who demonstrate this far better than I could ever demonstrate it. But I'm glad, glad we had a look inside there. I wanted to have a look myself, and I'll find something else to take apart another time. Until then, all the best. Thank you very much for watching.